This video is a film study focus on Cade Mays, the free agent center that the Detroit Lions just signed. I think 3 years, pretty affordable deal if you ask me from an APY standpoint. I think for a variety of reasons this is a good start. Even though Taylor Decker's been released, David Montgomery traded to the Houston Texans. I'm going to give you a couple of reasons here why I like this signing before we start the film. Number one, it handles at least one spot on the offensive line before the draft. I do like the centers that are in this draft. In fact, I like pretty much the entirety of the offensive line, other than maybe the tackle position from a depth standpoint. It at least checks off one of the boxes, the need that is there along the offensive line, in particular since Taylor Decker has been released. I think Dan Campbell, Drew Petzing, they've got a decision to make now at 17. That's obvious. I'll talk about the draft options a little bit later. Mays is not an overly athletic guy. He's not going to overwhelm people with his style. I think he's quick enough, strong enough, very experienced and smart. Didn't start every game this season for Carolina, which I don't necessarily know the reason why, to be honest with you. Have some questions about their offensive line. This is a high standard for what I attempted to do here. And what I mean is I picked two challenging games. The Seattle Seahawks in Week 17. I think it was a 27-10 loss for Carolina. They actually competed. And then their 34-31 playoff loss at home to the Rams, a game that, I was rooting for Carolina to win, to be honest with you. I had no idea that Cade Mays would, months later end up being the starting center or the free agent acquisition for the Lions, presumably to be the starter. I think he's got a good base. I don't think he's overly athletic compared to, some other centers in the league, Creed Humphrey, Tyler Linderbaum, who just signed a ridiculous deal with the Las Vegas Raiders. Nor do I think he's a people mover, all right? But he does a lot of things very well. Combos up to the inside linebacker being one of them, and I'll show you, I think, two examples of this. When he gets a free release directly up to the second level, does a really excellent job of fronting up an inside linebacker, or in some cases getting a knockdown, a KD, putting him on the ground. He's physical in those. He's more physical in those situations once he gets to the second or maybe third level. I think he moves really well in tight space. Left guard, right guard quality, in my opinion, is going to be important to have next to him because he's very smart. From a overall quality standpoint, he's clearly somewhere between Ragnow and Glasgow. I think probably closer to Frank Ragnow. We'll get the film started here. I'll generally have Cade Mays spot shadowed in yellow again. My film is exclusively focused here on two games against high-level defenses, the Seahawks and the Rams, and we'll interchange or switch between the two. So really good at recognizing things on the run. He's the center. I don't necessarily need to spot shadow him necessarily. It's a split zone concept by Carolina, where the mic is almost kind of free. The mic is Ernest Jones IV. So Cade Mays is going to work directly up to the nickel linebacker, Nick Manwari. Look, when you watch the Seahawks film during this video or in general, it's kind of chaotic because you've got guys lined up in one place pre-snap and then they move, and you've got to be able to adjust. You've got to be able to adapt on the fly during the play, and I think that's one thing Cade Mays does really well. You can see he's getting up here to a Manwari, kind of clearing the path for the running back. A nice solid gain. This is actually the first play of the game. A Manwari makes the tackle, but when I say adjust on the run, what I'm talking about is you've got a two-eye defensive tackle to Cade Mays' right, our left-hand side of the screen, and then a three-technique Byron Murphy, who's just an absolute badass football player. And so the way that this works out post-snap, he's working in that direction, he being Cade Mays, possibly to try to help out the left guard with Byron Murphy, but Murphy kind of steps to the outside. Well, he gets kind of slapped out of the club to the outside, and then he just keeps going on that path. I'm talking about Cade Mays. So he's very good, if you ask me, of recognizing, okay, there's no work for me here. Let me stay on my tracks. Usually short, choppy, I would say conservative steps when he does get to the second level. He's not overstepping and trying to hit, I'll use a baseball analogy here, oftentimes in this video. He's not overstepping and trying to hit home runs necessarily. He's just trying to hit a whole bunch of singles and doubles. I think he's got really good eyes. In my opinion, he fits in a multiple zone gap system that Detroit has historically run. Who knows where that goes or shifts with Drew Petzing and Kafka now being the guys heavily involved. Let's do another one. This one is against the Rams in the wild card game. We're kind of working up to the second level. We're talking about the second level of the defense being, these two inside linebackers as well as that strong safety, and everyone else that you see in this picture, at least up front here, being the first level of the defense. Super smart, if you ask me. You can't really see Cade Mays here. There's a new right guard in the right guard, number 50, who was in for the first quarter of this game against the Rams, was really terrible and made a handful of misreads. This happens quick, number one. Number two, you don't necessarily get a great angle view of what I'm going to try to point out to you as far as Cade Mays goes. The running back, a great effort here, but watch when Mays releases here. So he's got an A-gap defender to his right and a tight three technique to his left, so on the outside shade of the left guard. And so initially he's going to actually kind of shoulder barge a little bit, make contact with that defensive lineman, then take his left arm and frame up on the hip or maybe the midsection of that defensive tackle. I think he's really good at surveying. I think he's really good at seeing where he can fit or help out within the context of the play. Now, there is some disruption to this, don't get me wrong. It's this A-gap defender who's directly lined up. He's the closest threat to Cade Mays. So is there a universe where those two guys just straight combo him and someone moves up to the Mike linebacker? Sure, they're going to have some difficulty with math if they do that, in my opinion, meaning that the inside linebacker that Cade Mays goes to eventually, 48 right here, would almost pretty much be unblocked. It's a really nice cut by the running back off of that penetrating D-tackle, and then attempting to spin out of the contact of the safety, who's a little bit late. Again, my baseball analogy from a moment ago. He's going to hit a lot of doubles. And I don't think that this Detroit Lions offensive line needs guys swinging for home runs. I think he plays with a conservative style in tight space. He seems to be very calm and poised, in my opinion. Like I said, I'm 2 games in. I chose these 2 games specifically. I'll try to perhaps do a follow-up if I can a little bit later on in the week. It's been a super chaotic day. I think he adapts well during the play, especially in zone schemes. This is another example of it here. Back to that Week 17 game against the Seahawks. So he's going to bypass the nose tackle. He's got his eyes first on Byron Murphy, okay? And he's looking to block Murphy initially, but Murphy's going to kind of slant across his face. And Mays is he's really calm. He just moves on quick. So the scheme, maybe there's too many lines on the screen. That's the running back path. So this is actually a receiver back in the backfield who's going to kind of, some people call it bluff, hide concept, whatever, on that defensive end. And then the running back path is off of that motion or against that. So I call it split flow, even though it's a wide receiver in the backfield. It's almost kind of split zone-esque. But watch the defensive tackle, Byron Murphy, just basically run across Cade Mays' face. He doesn't hesitate at all. He trusts the path that these other 3 linemen are going on. I'm talking about Cade Mays' path here, the path of the right guard, and the path of the right tackle, essentially being, a mirrored image of each other, almost parallel lines, if you will. And then he just goes up to the second level. Oh, by the way, he KOs Ernest Jones IV, one of my favorite players in the whole league. I mean, you guys probably, during the course of the season, heard me talk about, watching inside linebacker play. The only guy that I thought rivaled Jack Campbell from consistency and explosive plays, sometimes game-changing plays, was Ernest Jones IV, who I think had 5 interceptions on the year, a 6th that actually got called back. I think Mays is smooth. When I said not overly athletic, I mean compared to a couple of the centers that are in this draft, compared to Tyler Linderbaum. Frank Ragnow is probably at his best slightly more athletic than Cade Mays, but just super tough, strong, and technical as well. I think Mays is on a number line closer to Frank Ragnow than he is to Graham Glasgow. That should be good news for you guys. I think relatively he's a better pass protection guy than run blocker. This is a small sample size, of course, that I've picked with 2 games, but you're getting an idea of hopefully me describing to you or illustrating with the plays that he reacts well, number one, in zone schemes, and he doesn't try to necessarily overpower people because, that's really, to be honest with you, not his game. Let's do another couple of run plays here. He's going to be matched up with Riley Mills, who was a rookie in 2025 for the Seahawks. Look, Seattle was always slanting, moving, changing the look post-snap, right? You've got to be able to, as an offensive lineman, adjust quickly and deal with those things on your track. So I think he shows really nice feet here, and the ability to adjust. I'm talking about him dealing with this defensive tackle, Riley Mills. Had a sack in the Super Bowl, by the way. So the way this works out, this defensive tackle, Riley Mills, is going to stunt kind of across Cade Mays' face. Drake Thomas, the inside linebacker who just signed, I think, a 2-year contract for Seattle, he's going to step up, almost kind of blitz the B gap, and then this safety, Ty Okada, is going to walk up and help out with the run fit. It's a 12 personnel group. Seattle is a base nickel defense. So they're just trying to make the safety responsible for something. I think Mays handles Riley Mills pretty well here. It's a 12 personnel group. They got the tight end flashing across. Okada comes up and makes a great tackle. Okada's super underrated guy, if you ask me. Played really well when they had injuries there in Seattle in the secondary. But he's freed up by this tight end kind of flashing across, so that alleviates him of a second pass threat to his side. There is a wide receiver off screen to our right. We're focusing on Cade Mays. I don't think the play is unsuccessful because of his blocking ability or inability to block here. He's taken Riley Mills pretty much out of the play. Riley Mills is, if you ask me, kind of predetermined stunt across his face. And Cade Mays, if you accept my assertion, he's really good at adjusting during the play. It's just taking him where he wants to go. So essentially, if Riley Mills wants to go there, he's not going to fight. He being Cade Mays is not going to fight that momentum. He's going to let him go where he was slanting or stunting. Again, to continue my baseball analogy, he doesn't strike out a lot, takes good steps. As such, because he takes good, short, choppy steps, he's able to adjust. I think he's got, I'm not a huge fan of like ceiling and floor discussions necessarily, but I think this guy's got a pretty high floor as your starting center for the next 3 years. Last run play here that we'll focus on is a very familiar one for Lions fans, or at least for people that paid attention to my content. I call it a Windback zone play. It's literally a Detroit Lions concept from the last 2 or 3 years. As far as Cade Mays goes, he's not going to hit. He doesn't get a ton of horizontal displacement on guys, just enough, if you ask me. So him and the left guard are going to deal with this defensive tackle, leaving the right guard pretty much one-on-one with the backside defensive tackle, who's really in like a 2-eye, A-gap defender, if you will. So most people would refer to him as a nose. So the blocking scheme, the way that this works out, you're getting a block on the outside, essentially a base block, a lock on the backside, however people want to call it, essentially recreating a base block mirrored image combo on that defensive tackle. And then the beauty of this concept for me, what I really love about the Windback stuff in the NFL, is it uses a tight end or a fullback, or in this case a tight end masquerading as a fullback, to go get the backside inside linebacker. David Montgomery was fantastic on these. Jahmyr Gibbs at times as well. Making it look like you're going to hit front side over here, and then winding it back underneath of this block by the tight end on the inside linebacker. How does it relate to Cade Mays? I'm using it to show you guys that he's good at combo blocks, and with Mahogany and Radledge being to his outside, his left and his right, presumably, that's a good setup because both of those guys are good zone blockers, also good on duo. I didn't find as many duo concepts for Cade Mays, to be honest with you. A lot of stuff that's like this, where you're getting a combo, and then him and the left guard are figuring this out, meaning the left guard went to the linebacker at the second level, and Cade Mays stayed on the guy at the first level. That's not where the football went. Running back cut it back underneath the tight end's block, I think by design. That's why I call it a windback instead of a cutback. Certainly, if a lane develops in there, then the running back could take it there. I'm not saying it's completely predetermined, and the running back has no choice at all to be an athlete and just read it. In the run game, my assessment after 2 games, I'm only showing you 5 plays, but I cut up, I think, 43. I could theoretically, I think what I may start doing in some of my videos, to be honest with you, is whatever plays I have cut up as my large-scale group to evaluate, putting them in an editor and just in the continuous film, put it in a Google Drive so that people can see it, so that I can prove that my work is done. I'm not going to present to you 43 plays, nor do I have the time to do so. It doesn't take that much to see that you've got a reliable, smart, very stable acquisition here. He's going to get guys to the right place, certainly an upgrade over Graham Glasgow. I think that's obvious, no disrespect to him. I think he fits in well with, Penei Sewell, Mahogany, and then Tate Radledge, along with whoever, the Lions bring in the draft, or perhaps another free agency acquisition to make that 5th starting offensive lineman group. Let's move on to Pass Pro for the remaining portion of this film study video. I'll have some evaluative things maybe at the end, as well as some projection on the draft. I think he's a little more talented and as a Pass Pro guy, meaning the quick feet still shows up. The hand usage seems to be, to me, of an elevated fashion, a little bit more advanced, if you will. He's really smart when he tries to anchor down and stonewall people. He understands pass protection schemes and where he can fit, where he's really threatened by the most. I think he's stronger than some may perceive him. So he's going to end up dealing with, I think it's Fisk over here, the defensive tackle on our right side. The Rams are in kind of this like 2-3 technique look. Some people call it a split 40. There's the pass protection scheme that you get. He's basically helping out the left guard on our screen, the guy on the right side of our screen. I'm going to rewind this a handful of times so you can see a certain point in time, whether you're combo blocking or just helping out in Pass Pro, it does end up being a one-on-one. And in this case, I think you got Fisk trying to get his cleats in the ground and drive Cade Mays backwards. Pretty good anchor, if you ask me, for someone who's got quick hands and not overly impressive from a size and arm length standpoint. I think he's a really good football player, smart. I remember when he came out of the draft, I think he spent a year at Georgia and 3 at Tennessee, or maybe it was 2 and 2. I could be wrong here. I didn't expect Detroit to make this signing. I don't know if you did. It's not something that was on my radar necessarily, but once it came up, I was like, oh, this is a good one. And here's why I will say that to you. As Ravens fans, we knew that pretty much Tyler Linderbaum was gone. We didn't know, I don't think anyone knew, other than his agent maybe, that he was going to get $81 million over 3 years. I think the Ravens offered Linderbaum somewhere in the range of 4 years, 86, or 4 years, 88. So, just didn't work out math-wise, as well as the state income tax maybe being an issue. But Cade Mays was a guy who we as Ravens fans looked at and said, hey, he could be a replacement, an affordable replacement, if you will. And Detroit got him. I think the salary structure is good for Detroit, obviously good for Cade Mays. He's a very professional, smart offensive lineman, center. And I think the thing I like about him the most in Pass Pro, he doesn't overcommit. Kind of similar to the way that I said he approaches combo blocks, and he doesn't take big steps, doesn't whiff, if you will, and strike out a lot. Wild card game here against the Rams again, and it's a unique alignment for the Rams. And so what I mean is you've got these 2 defensive tackles to one side. I call it an overload. Then there's 3 edge defenders on the field for LA. It's the rookie Josiah Stewart on the left, and then the 2 badass outside linebackers, Young and Verse for the Rams, set up on the right. So dime look, or maybe even some would say penny look, because I don't see an inside linebacker on the field. There's a pick stunt that is happening, and it's somewhat unique the way that it's occurring. So first, 91, Kobe Turner is stepping across the midline. So from Cade Mays' right to his left, or left to right on our screen. And then along with that is you've got an attempted pick by Fisk. Now, he actually ends up picking the guard, he being Fisk. I wonder if he was supposed to pick Mays, the center, and the right guard just carried him down. So I'm talking about the right guard carrying Fisk down, so that pick actually ends up happening on the left guard. But as a result of that, I feel like the right guard has put himself in front of Mays and made him have to adjust to something that was, unexpected. What I do like, even though Mays for a moment is, I guess people could say he's wrong, I think he's put in an unusual situation because of how far down this guard carries Fisk, and basically ends up stacked over top of Cade Mays, if you will. And then he adjusts and tries to anchor down as much as he can in front of Fisk. I think the right guard went a little bit too far. Cool play by the Rams, because you've got the overload by the defensive tackles, the shift pre-snap, and then the pick along with that. Just what you get at times in the NFL. That's how high the standard is for these guys on the offensive line to deal with. And we know in recent years it's been, defense has been winning. Points per game have been down. I think Cade Mays is a good acquisition for this Lions team in particular because of what they dealt with Frank Ragnow leaving. And the center spot, in my opinion, is no longer a weakness. It's a source of strength. It's not as intently or as intense a strength, I should say, as it would be if you had Ragnar. But you got a guy with active eyes, active hands. He recognizes things. Pretty good feet, if you ask me. Plays a disciplined style and has a high level of awareness. I will be honest with you, I didn't watch a whole lot of Panthers film leading up to today, the first day of free agency, or the first day of legal tampering period. I watched the playoff game and the Seahawks game in Week 17, and that's about it. And it's partially another reason why I picked these two to utilize is because I already had the film compiled already. Another pass play against the Rams. This is a second and long. And so I think the awareness is going to show up here. There's some small things that he does, in my opinion, very well. I'll be talking about the hand placement, or you can try to pay attention to the hand placement that he utilizes to try to disrupt 91. So 91 is Turner. I'm talking about the right hand of Cade Mays, number one, but the eyes, number two, starting to dip a little bit or tip over maybe slightly, but not too bad because he's able to feed 91 into the left guard, square himself up to deal with Fisk, on one of those classic stunts that we see, threatening, a five-man rush because you got, again, 3 edge defenders on the field. Only 2 of them are rushing. They're dropping out Josiah Stewart, the rookie who played his last couple of years at Michigan. I think it's a really nice illustration of the balance that Cade Mays plays with. Incomplete pass, under control, and the technical acumen that he has when he's helping out. Some guys, when they recognize, okay, I'm going to pick this work up here, and this guy is your problem, meaning the left guard. But he still, in my opinion, does small little things that help out. To use a basketball analogy or phrase for a moment, he plays team defense, although he's an offensive lineman. Hopefully I explained that and said it in a way that makes sense. You're more than welcome to have a different interpretation of that play or this acquisition than I do. I think he's a very good player, especially at this price standpoint or this price point. Another one in pass pro, and admittedly, I think officially this goes down as a sack allowed for Cade Mays. But look, he's credited with giving up the sack, but he's not the problem here. The entire pocket breaks down, or 3/5 of the Panthers' offensive line does. So he's obviously the center. I got him spot shadowed for a moment. I just want to call attention to there's the line of scrimmage. All right, you're talking about just short of the -38. Watch what happens to the pocket as Mays is one-on-one with Fisk once again. We're talking about the 3 technique who's here, and I will give you the end zone angle to show it a little bit more clearly. Josiah Stewart absolutely annihilates the left tackle, collapses the pocket in on the quarterback, and the edge defender up at the top of the screen on a stunt destroys things as well. You can see the chaos that has ensued for the offensive line here, right? The idea that I'm presenting to you here is something that I have a little bit of a complaint about rating services anyways, is this is going to be applied to Cade Mays. And this he's not the only guy this happens to, right? And it happens to Lions, offensive linemen, Ravens, everyone. Everybody's back in the quarterback's lap. Well, 2 of the offensive linemen are. The left tackle's, on the ground. The right tackle has used a little bit of a technique to get the defensive tackle down the ground, but the edge defender is pushing the right guard back. And there's Cade Mays. He's got the defensive tackle, Fisk, as the furthest guy forward, the closest to the -38, right? Everybody else has advanced a whole lot deeper towards the quarterback. Fisk gets the sack, right? I don't think his anchor is nearly as bad as I've heard a couple of people say. And I think this, play can kind of be seen as example number 1. He's got the right foot in the ground. The end zone angle, he'll actually look a little bit more off balance than this kind of portrays. Is Fisk seeing the quarterback and then adjusting to his path? It's entirely possible. You get a better idea of what I'm talking about there from the end zone angle. I guess what I'm saying is when you look at this holistically, the problem wasn't Cade Mays on this play, but it's part of one of the games that I chose. I already had downloaded and made easy to edit. So same play from the end zone angle. Like I said, it's a wild card game against the Rams, 2nd and 5. Mays ends up with Fisk, the defensive tackle. This is the complete win by Josiah Stewart, and the stunt path by the left defensive end or edge defender, if you will. There's the step that Cade Mays is going to take and who he's going to deal with. looks a little bit better from a Fisk perspective here as far as keeping active feet and then possibly seeing the quarterback here when he gets his helmet to the left-hand side. Maybe he recognizes that where Young's going to go, and that's why he locks out his arms, controls Mays. So, perhaps looks a little bit better for Fisk, a little bit worse for Mays here. My point is the initial problem with the pass rush was not Cade Mays. I don't think he's a mauler. Not as good as Ragnow, obviously. Better than Glasgow, as I've said. But I think he's very technical, and I think he's tough. And this handles one of the offensive line positions, in my opinion. He's not a guy who loses a ton quickly. The comparison to Glasgow, I think, is pretty poor, to be honest with you, because I felt like Glasgow was a guy who had some immediate losses. Maybe the percent of losses is similar. I don't know that to be true. I'm just offering to you that some losses are far worse than others if they happen immediately or instantly. And I was glad when I knew I had the Seahawks game, obviously, because I got every Seahawks game, just like every Lions and every Ravens game for this year. But I was glad to recognize that I had this Rams game as well, because I knew, okay, there's two quality defensive linemen, really good defensive tackles that I can judge him against. It's going to be one-on-one with the nose tackle here. I will mention this, that Glasgow, I think, had 2 penalties in 2025. Cade Mays had 3, and I think Cade Mays only started like 13 or 14 games, but he did only have, I believe, 3 penalties in 2024 as well. So there's not a lot of penalties. In fact, I think it was 5 penalties in 2024, but they were all false starts. So a false start on the center usually involves some problem that, may not have been his, in fact. But the defensive tackle trying to cross his face here, and watch the outside arm of Cade Mays, be able to control him enough. He's got the hand on the inside here, which is important as 90 tries to rip by him. He's just able to ride him out of there. There is an obvious quarterback hit here by the Rams. It did not emanate from anyone that Cade Mays was engaging. The running back released. Edge defender goes underneath. I think this is a really good signing. Some losses, on film here to Byron Murphy or Turner, the defensive tackle for the Rams, absolutely. I think the penalty stats, as well as some of the film that I'm showing you, illustrates that the Lions front office, Brad Holmes here, made a pretty good acquisition, in my opinion. To apply a grade to it, I would say solid B to B+. If you get the level of play that we see near the height of his powers for Cade May, then you're going to be super happy with this, 1 year from today. Week 17 against the Seahawks, once again, he's going to help out with Leonard Williams, one of the most, physically aggressive and technical defensive linemen with size in the league, finally recognized to be an All-Pro in 2025, I think second teamer. So Seattle's got the Mike linebacker walked up, and they're just trying to force or set the protection, whatever it is, for Carolina, whatever their answer is. That's what Seattle does a ton of, right? They got 8 guys on the line. Ends up being a 5-man rush. It's an overload to the left-hand side. You got a Manwari, DeMarcus Lawrence, Julian Love, all blitzing from one side, and then Ernest Jones is backing out of there. As soon as Cade Mays sees that, watch him peel to the called side where the overload was pre-snap. And again, it's his hand placement for me. Watch the left hand and where he gets it placed on Leonard Williams. Controlling him, the right guard was there to help, but I think actually the way we should describe it is they've got an overload. 1, 2, 3, 4 over here, right? And so Carolina needs all 4 of their offensive linemen or all 4 of their blockers to deal with that. The right guard is benefiting from the help that Cade Mays supplies. And so because he takes him over with a low strike with 2 hands, the right guard is able to peel out, to take out, to deal with, Manwari, and try to give the quarterback some time. Basically, I think Cade Mays is very fundamentally sound, even in the face of this madness that the Seahawks provide on, pretty much, if not every snap, definitely on every 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 8, right? Seattle's going to do something to force your offensive line to have answers. I think Cade Mays is a part of a winning formula for Detroit. Carolina obviously was not, a really good football team. They did make the playoffs in 2025. I don't have any idea where Cade Mays is ranked. I do know that the penalties are low. I feel like slotting him between Tate Ratledge and Christian Mahogany looks like a good grouping to me. I probably think higher of Mahogany than some other people do, some other Lions fans perhaps. I did like the Ratledge Sewell pairing next to each other on the right-hand side. To be honest with you, I recognize that, because of Taylor Decker being released, that dynamic could have changed. So one more, and this probably could have been put earlier in this video, to be honest with you. It illustrates the play strength. Jarran Reed is a very underrated defensive lineman, defensive tackle to be precise, for Seattle. You guys may not know much about him. I think he started his career in Seattle and then came back and, of course, won a Super Bowl last year. So, and Nwosu's getting like an upfield rush. That angle's, maybe not good. It's more of an upfield rush. And Mays ends up in a one-on-one blocking situation with Jarran Reed. It's because he's blocking back and the right guard is pulling in a pass protection scheme that some people would call a gap protection scheme, but there's different names for it. The anchor, I think, shows up. The hand placement on the inside. Maybe Jarran Reed is reading the block and trying to react, and so I'm giving Mays more credit than he deserves. I don't think so. I think that he's got this covered. In one-on-one situations, his work rate is really good, in my opinion. I'm looking forward to seeing what some of you have to say in the comment section. I didn't have time today, Monday. Well, the last 72 hours has been pure insane for me from a scheduling standpoint. I like him a whole lot better than Glasgow. He doesn't lose nearly as quickly as Glasgow did at times, in my opinion. A guy who, again, to continue my baseball analogy, is going to hit a whole bunch of doubles and not strike out much. I guess point number one that you'd have to accept or you would accept under my explanation of why I like this pick so much is that it clears things up a little bit, or maybe opens up possibilities at 17. Not that you were going to take a center or a guard at 17, not by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that that's the best place to address a starting tackle. That's pretty obvious, right? It's not going to be 50 at all. There'll be few options there at 50 for maybe even interior offensive line, although I do think that the interior offensive line quality extends through almost the entirety of the third round. In no particular order at 17, you'll have options with, depending on who gets taken first. The Miami right tackle could end up being a guard. Monroe feeling 6'7", maybe kind of light overall from a weight standpoint for Georgia. Spencer Fano, and the other tackle for Georgia, I think it's Loma. The Arizona State guy, to me, looks like a perfect fit for Detroit. 17 is probably too soon or too rich for him. Maybe there's a trade-back scenario for the Lions where they look at taking him. Max, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the last name. I will do so if he ends up on the Ravens, Lions, or Seahawks. Obviously, I'll memorize how to say the name correctly. I think this clears things up in that you've got 4 dedicated starting offensive linemen right now. A 5th is what is needed in this draft. I like the depth that's there at 17 for tackle. Maybe some guys aren't left tackles. Maybe they're right tackles. Penei Sewell gives you the option or the ability to move him over. I think the 4 usable starter caliber players that you have should offset some of the maybe frustration or disappointment that's out there for Taylor Decker being released. I think officially today it was announced this evening before I recorded this. And then also the trade of David Montgomery. Really difficult to handle. I'm friends with a really good Houston Texans, a really rabid, I should say, Houston Texans fan, and he asked me, he said, how good is David Montgomery? I said, he's exceptional. He's going to probably run for 1,200 yards for you guys because he's going to get the football a lot, number one. Number two, if your offensive line is high caliber, he'll find the right lane. I'm a big fan of this pre-draft for Detroit. I recognize that they signed another veteran tackle, probably as a depth piece would be my guess. I still think they address tackle in the draft. The things that I've mentioned for Cade Mays, hopefully the film I showed supported it and illustrated it. If you're interested, I could cut up or edit together or 43 plays that I had edited from those 2 games that I thought were noteworthy, that I used to form the basis or the spine, if you will, of my evaluation of Cade Mays. 3-year deal, I think an affordable salary, especially compared to, Tyler Linderbaum and a couple of other offensive line. Look, the Ravens just signed a left guard, John Simpson, who gives up a high number of sacks, has a lot of penalties every year. He played for us in 2023. I think he had 11 penalties that year, maybe 10. Cade Mays, 3 penalties this past year, 4 in 2024, and you signed him for less salary or less average per year salary than we did John Simpson. Granted, he's a center compared to a guard. I think it's a smart acquisition. Conservative player, Cade Mays, with the way he approaches things, fundamentally sound, gets himself and others in the right place, and really good, if you accept one more analogy, as a help defender, if you will, trying to assist his teammates, the guards, to his right or to his left, taking over blocks in the run game or in pass pro. Appreciate you guys' time, man. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, number 1. Number 2, if you have other suggestions for film study stuff that I could put out, related to free agency and or the draft, please let me know in the comment section. And finally, I held on to this as long as I could, just so that hardcore people at the end hear this. Myself and a number of others are involved in a large-scale project related to the draft that we would like to reveal probably this weekend coming up. Will Rock, Easy, from I think it's Woodward Heavyweights or just a Woodward company or group. Those guys have assisted some as well, some Ravens content creators. A group of 6 or 7 or maybe even more people have been willing to help with something draft related that I wanted to produce last year, and we finally got off the ground. I can't wait to show it to you guys. It is draft related, and it's something that'll be interactive on the user's end. So I appreciate you guys' time, man. Once again, if you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study and my commentary on Cade Mays, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.